Sons of the Forest, an unexpected follow-up to a much beloved game. And with the original having an overwhelmingly positive score on Steam, one must think, how different really is its sequel? A little, maybe a few tweaks here and there, some quality of life updates? How about a lot? Sons of the Forest doesn't just update a few mechanics with a fresh new coat of paint, but it enhances and adds a lot from its predecessor, that it's almost a new game entirely. Which it is. I don't know what I'm talking about. And so I made this video to help you better understand how the game works, what you can do, and what you should probably avoid. Kamusta everyone, I'm Ali Manapi, and today we're going to survive Sons of the Forest. This game is huge. Oh, Jesus Christ! Why? And he's drowning. Of course. Sons of the Forest is a horror survival game made by Night Games on February 22nd, 2024. The game is heavily focused on crafting, base building, and resource management, with its story being laid out through set pieces and clues for which you'll learn naturally as you explore the game's world. Now, being a good boy that I am, I'm not gonna spoil too much of the story as the game heavily relies on you to piece it all together yourself. Or you can just watch a summary on YouTube. Much like its predecessor, exploration is still a huge part of the game, and let's just appreciate what Night Games has done by making the experience feel as real as possible through its sound design, environmental layout, and use of lighting. Nighttime is dark, caves are even darker, and the cannibals and mutants surrounding the island are much creepier. This beginner's guide will tackle the following things: starting the game, user interface, character needs, crafting, base building, exploration, combat, and ending it all with all the tips and tricks I've learned, gathered, thought of, and found online. With that said, let's start at the very beginning. Alright, let's see what we have here. A tarp, I don't know what that was. Okay, oh. Well, this guy's dead. Okay, so before you even start the game, know that your experience would highly differ based on the difficulty and save you create. Now, for the sake of simplicity, this beginner's guide was made in a game played in single player, set on the standard normal difficulty. Here's a quick image highlighting how different the other difficulties would be if you're interested in more challenge, but if you're new to the game, which I assume you are, I don't know why you clicked on this video if you're not, I suggest going with normal instead. Know that if you do start the game on multiplayer, it would no longer be possible for you to pause the game, even if you are playing alone, but it will allow your character to infinitely respawn on that. So there's that. After the game's opening cutscene, you will start in one of the 3 default spawn locations: the forest, the beach, or the mountains. From here, you can do just about anything: build, explore, fight. I mean, if you want to, you can go ahead and kill everyone on sight. At the bottom right corner of your screen, you'll see your heads-up display along with all the details you need to know about your character. This includes your hunger, thirst, rest, health, stamina, strength, armor, and of course, the minimap itself. Hunger, thirst, and rest are your character's needs. You will have to manage this as you play cause, well, it's a survival game. Health and stamina are self-explanatory. Health is your character's hit points, and stamina dictates how many actions you can do within a set period of time. Strength, on the other hand, works as your character's level of sorts. It increases as you complete physical actions such as, swinging a spear, chopping down trees, running, climbing, combat, parkour. The more strength you have, the more max HP you gain, and the more damage you can do with melee weapons. Armor acts as additional hit points on top of your existing health, taking the damage received before your health is reduced. And in true video game fashion, the minimap is your basic top-down view of your surroundings. You don't have to constantly check this, but it is nice to have. Hey, fucker! Jesus Christ! Stop! Whew. Jesus. Of course, being a survival game, Sons of the Forest would slowly introduce challenges through gameplay. Hunger is a measure of how much food you have in your body. As such, the only way to replenish it is to eat. 2 pieces of any cooked meat are enough to replenish your hunger completely. And while any raw food can also replenish this, it's highly inadvisable as it won't replenish it as much as it would have if prepared properly. It also has a chance of making you sick. You know, kind of like real life. Thirst is a measure of how much hydration you have in your body. You can replenish this by drinking. Who knew? 2 gulps of clean water is enough to replenish your thirst completely. And while you can drink straight from ponds and rivers to quench your thirst, much like hunger, it's also not recommended as it won't replenish it as much as it would have if prepared properly. To make it drinkable, you can pour it in a pot, set it on fire, and boil it that way. This is not how it works in real life. Don't just casually boil stuff you like to drink. Now, for you to even prepare anything, the first thing you need to know is how to build a campfire. Unlike the first game, there is no campfire blueprint, so you will have to build it manually. Grab a stick, look down, look for the campfire highlight, and follow the on-screen controls provided. You can further extend the fire's lifespan. You can further extend the fire's lifespan by surrounding it with rocks or by using firewood. To cook, look at the campfire, hold down E, and prepare the food you prefer. Interestingly enough, the game has added a basic cooking mechanic, and it adds some meals you can prepare in-game. In addition to reducing hunger, some meals increase health, thirst, warmth, stealth, strength, comfort, and even chopping speed. Now, I'm not gonna go over this too much because I never actually made any in-game meals myself. Feel free to experiment if you'd like, but for the standard hunger, any piece of cooked meat should be enough. You can get them from any animal in the game, unless you're feeling spicy. Rest is a measure of how well rested you are. Sleep restores it, but certain items such as soda can increase it momentarily. There are multiple ways you can sleep in the game, but the easiest one is to use a single tarp and stick. It's not gonna be the best sleep, but it is enough to have you pass time. Take note that sleeping and saving are 2 unrelated options, so make sure to save before or after sleeping so that you can reload when necessary. Oh, well, sorry, buddy. From spears, tools to even ammunition, there is a lot for you to gather, equip, and craft in the game. And these are essential if you'd like to survive long, which I assume you do. Now, I can't stress enough how important this is, as I'm not even certain you can beat the game without crafting. Luckily, unlike the first game, Sons of the Forest does make sure to teach you how to craft in the first few minutes. Somewhat. So, here's how you craft. Press I and this would open up your inventory. Here you'll see a bunch of items and equipment you've gathered as you played and explored. If you right click on an item, in this case a stick, you'll then place that item directly at the center of your screen. You've now selected that stick as part of the materials needed to craft an item. You can then hover over the nearby gear icon and you'll see every single thing you could add onto that stick. In this case, if I'd like to build a bow, all I would need is 2 sticks, a rope, and 2 tapes. Have all that selected and you'll hear a sound indicating that you have all the materials ready for crafting. You'll also see the gear icon start rotating as well as no longer being transparent. Right click on that gear icon again and the player, in this case you, will then craft that recipe for you. Congratulations! You now have one of the most useful weapons in the game. A crafted bow. You can experiment with more things if you'd like. If you place 2 sticks, a tape, and your knife, you'll then create a spear, perfect for throwing at enemies. If you place a single cloth and a stick together, then you'll make a torch, perfect for the cold weather. The great thing about this is you no longer need to Google any recipes for crafting, as everything should be present in the game itself. Just hover over the nearby gear icon and you'll know everything you need. Okay, maybe building a huge base was a bad idea. So this goes here, and this goes there. Well, that's new. Alright, so compared to the forest, this game takes place on a much larger map, and it can be overwhelming, especially when it comes to picking a good base location. Despite some locations being far safer than others, they can also be much much more difficult to get to or build, so more often than not, it's better to just pick one that suits your fancy. Like most survival games, building a base is usually what appeals to most players, allowing you to personalize and defend it to your liking. This is especially true in Sons of the Forest, as enemies will find and eventually invade you as days pass by. Building a solid and defensible base to sleep in would be the safest thing you can do as a new player while you try to learn some of the game's mechanics. Also because it's fun. Now, most large structures in the game are made of logs, and building something is extremely easy. All you need to do is grab a log, place it on the ground, and form the structure you'd like. It's very intuitive, and there is a lot of fun in figuring out what you can and cannot do while building. In addition to this, the good old blueprint mode still exists, reminiscent of the previous game, allowing you to place other objects in the world such as birdhouses, drying racks, and rainwater collectors. Just pick what you want, place it on the world, insert the materials mentioned, and it will build that structure for you. A solid base will always have these four things: a steady supply of food and water, a nearby source of materials, a good way to defend itself, and lastly, a unique and personalized look so that you'll feel proud of actually building it. Now, I've already explained your character's needs, so it would make sense to build your base near any source of water along with fish and other roaming animals. There are many building materials in the game, but the most common ones are sticks, rocks, stones, and logs. You can get sticks from large plants, rocks from the ground, stones next to riverbanks, and logs from, well, trees. I don't know why I had to explain this. It goes without saying that if you are going to build a certain base, build it close to the materials needed to construct it. Building a stone base on a beach is not the most fun experience. But that's just me. In terms of defense, you can build a wall, set up traps, or use the environment itself. To build a defensive wall, grab a log, place it on the ground, connect it with other logs, and chop off the tip. They take a while to break, but it can and will given enough damage. Another option would be to set up traps everywhere. This is much more time consuming and you'll need to gather more materials to build them. But it is highly effective and extremely fun to see in action. If all fails, you can always just build smartly and construct your base next to cliff sides and water sources. These are natural defenses against enemies as they can't swim and have difficulty traversing unusable terrain. Take note that even with all this in mind, building a base should be fun, so don't be confined to the rules I've mentioned or those stated in other beginner's guides. Yes, it would probably make your base building experience much easier and much more safe, but this is your game and your base. Build it however you wish, wherever you want, as long as you're having fun. I mean, do I just... yeah, I can sneak up to it. It should be fine. Okay! What the fuck? Exploring the forest has always been one of the most calming and satisfying parts of that game. It's also been one of the most terrifying and intense experience. And Sons of the Forest is no different. Since exploration in this game is directly related to your experience and the game story itself, to keep things spoiler free, I'll just go ahead and list down 3 things you should know. 1, and I'm sure you already know this, the island is filled with roaming cannibals, but from what I've learned, mutants will only start spawning in the world once a cave has been entered. This is good to know as you don't want to encounter mutants early on while you're still trying to learn how the game works. 2, the GPS locations marked on the map usually means gear, as well as tools you can use in the game. This includes the modern axe, the flashlight, some golf carts, a gun, and a few others, simply by following what the game marks for you. You really don't have to Google anything unless you want to get these things early on. You'll naturally stumble upon them as you explore, and it's far more satisfying when it happens. At least for me. And lastly, nighttime is dark. Too dark to see. Not only are you gonna miss certain things as you explore, but you'll also risk stumbling into groups of enemies if you explore at night. I personally would explore during the day, but again, this is your game. Do what you wish. We're at the halfway mark and I'd really appreciate if you can leave a like if this helped you so far. Unlike other YouTubers, I don't really have an editor working for me and I also have a full-time job, so this definitely took me a while to make. Better yet, subscribe. I mean, you made it this far. Obviously, I don't know everything, so if I've missed anything a new player should know or I'm just downright wrong about something else, please leave them in the comment section below. I'm sure other players would appreciate it. Hello? Well, that's not good. Combat in Sons of the Forest very much plays the same as the first game, albeit with increased and varied challenges. Enemy attacks are no longer as easily avoidable as before, and certain cannibals now have specific weaknesses you have to exploit in order to quickly defeat them. Some are huge hulking monstrosities, some jump around like ninjas, and some will even douse themselves in fire and charge at you with no hesitation. Distance is still your best friend, and ranged weapons will be your best way to defeat enemies while keeping yourself from getting hit. As you do combat, if you do enough damage, you are able to incapacitate cannibals momentarily, giving you just enough time to land a charge-up melee attack. Better yet, go for a headshot for a satisfying instant kill. And while there are now guns in the game, because of how scarce bullets are, it's better to just save them for mutants when you spot one in caves, in the wilds, or attacking your base. Mobility is key. As long as you remain moving, you'll have a better chance of dodging enemies. Which makes sense. Keep your distance, damage them at range, and perform a strong melee attack when you have the opportunity. Rinse and repeat. Now, obviously it's not going to be that easy, but give it some practice and a lot of confidence, and you'll soon realize that this game's combat is not as difficult as it seems. Sons of the Forest is an amazing game, fit for players looking for a fun horror survival game experience, either solo or with friends. And as promised, here are all the tips and tricks I've learned, gathered, thought of, and found online. Okay, so the game doesn't really tell you this, but much like Don't Starve Together, Sons of the Forest is separated into 4 seasons, with each one being 5 days long in normal difficulty. The changes for each season is not as drastic as other games, but winter does enough wherein the world does change significantly. Because of the added snow and reduced plant growth, winter would make it much more difficult to gather sticks, rocks, and pebbles, so make sure you stock up on those before winter arrives. Water from ponds, lakes, and even rainwater collectors would also freeze up during winter, so make sure you stock up on those as well. Come to think of it, all animals and fish would also stop appearing during winter, so just stock up on those too. Stock up on everything. For your convenience, at normal difficulty, winter would arrive by day 16 and would end at day 21. You don't have to open up your full inventory every time you need to select an item. Instead, just press and hold down your inventory key and it'll show you your backpack instead. You can also keybind certain items to your number keys. You can do this by hovering over an item on your inventory and pressing down your preferred hotkey. You can select any key from 0 to 10. Is there a 10? Actually 1 to 0, sorry about that. I've already mentioned this, but if you do play the game on single player, the world instantly pauses every time you go into your inventory. This means that if you are in combat and you need to quickly heal mid-fight, just go to your inventory and heal up. You can unpause once you're done. The game's world somewhat resets every time you reload into the game. This means that certain items such as materials and ammunition do respawn to where you found them originally. Just know that it doesn't work on everything. So this is not really a spoiler per se, but there are 2 recruitable companions in the game. These are Kelvin and Virginia. Kelvin can finish structures, gather materials, and fix buildings, and Virginia can be given certain firearms so that she can defend your base. Oddly enough, you don't have to provide Virginia any ammunition when given a gun, as she automatically and unusually has an infinite amount of them to use. Also, Virginia won't be recruitable instantly, so you'll have to earn her trust by watching her from a distance until she starts liking you. This is just for Virginia, this doesn't work on all girls. You also don't have to look for her, she will find you eventually as you play the game. Unlike the first game, there is no sanity meter, so feel free to eat any cannibal meat you find, just take note that you'd still receive a decrease in max health when you do this. An easy way to have meat every day is to have Kelvin catch fish for you. However, since this would require Kelvin to do the catching, another way to have food every day is to build a fish trap underwater. It'll supply you with more than enough fish to eat for each day. Rainwater collectors are also an easy way to collect water, and building 2 to 3 is enough to keep you from going thirsty. Know that rainwater collectors can only be built with shells from sea turtles. Turtles from ponds, lakes, and rivers won't provide you with the shells you need. Sleep can be interrupted. Make sure that when you do sleep, you are in a decently defendable spot, or somewhat prepared for an ambush. It doesn't always happen, but it can happen nonetheless. Funnily enough, and this is just for my experience, having no sleep does not provide any negative consequences, except for an overall reduced energy level. The very first thing you should craft early in the game would be a crafted bow. A bow and arrow arrow is enough to keep you alive until you find a better weapon. And even if you don't, it is enough to beat the game from start to finish. You can craft a set of 4 stone arrows by using 2 sticks, 4 pebbles, and 4 feathers. You can get feathers from attacking birds in the world, but the most effective way is to build a birdhouse instead. Building 2 to 3 is enough to provide you all the feathers you need. You can also add variety to your arsenal by including flame arrows for damage over time or explosive arrows for a burst of massive damage. Aside from bows and arrows, I would also highly recommend you craft a bunch of spears as well. This would deal just enough damage to momentarily incapacitate an enemy, and much like arrows, you can pick them up after use. For defense, you can easily craft bone armor by using the corpses of enemies as material. Burn them in a campfire and use the bones with rope and tape to build a single piece. It's not the best armor in the game, but it is enough to keep you somewhat protected. When you do decide to build a base, I suggest you focus on your defenses first. Using up all the nearby logs on cabins and platforms is fine, but having them immediately destroyed by cannibal attacks is, well, not as much. Mutants spawn more often next to cave entrances, and cannibals tend to roam around their camps. Now, I could be wrong about this, but from my experience, if you'd like a base with constant action, then there you go. You can build spike traps by placing a stick on the ground and using an axe to point it at the angle you'd like it to hit. This does a lot of damage and is enough to keep enemies from getting near your base. If you're anything like me and you're having trouble connecting ceilings with walls wider than 3 sections, know that you can use half logs as support beams when inserted at the corners of walls, allowing them to withstand more weight. Materials such as logs and stones stock themselves up in containers when thrown into them. Chopped down trees will regrow over time. That's not really a tip. It's just nice to know when building our base. During winter, it's possible for cannibals to walk on frozen terrain. So for those people who are planning to build a base surrounded by water, make sure your base is still properly defended. In addition to that, it's also possible for you to build on frozen terrain. Your buildings will remain there even when it's no longer frozen. You don't need to jump off an extremely tall ledge just to make the most out of your glider. A short height from the ground is enough space to propel yourself upward repeatedly when timed correctly. It's not realistic, but it sure is fun. The more aggressive you are to cannibals, the more they would send out patrols and start fighting back. So pick your battles wisely. As I've said before, enemies can't swim, so bait them into water and they will drown themselves almost instantly. I use this a lot in caves. You can also perform a timed block by blocking at the exact moment an attack would hit. I never actually bothered learning this since I rather run around my enemies instead, so practice on some enemies and see for yourself. Puffies are easily killed by stun locking them with 3 strong attacks before they even get a chance to fight back. Fingers are also easily killed by striking them on its legs first. This will incapacitate them long enough, giving you time to throw down 2 charged up melee attacks. Sons of the Forest is such a step up and a change from its predecessor that I'm surprised that the overall gameplay loop and the enjoyment of it didn't really change that much. Not a lot of people would be on board with a slight difference in tonality, as this game is not as eerily mysterious as the first one. But despite that, it's still an incredible sequel, and End Night Games did a fantastic job following up on their most popular and highly rated game on Steam. And I hope this beginner's guide helped you in surviving Sons of the Forest. Hey, it's me. I was actually planning on uploading this video on February, same day as when Sons of the Forest got released, and well, as you can see, that didn't really turn out the way I wanted it to be. So yeah. Did you love Sons of the Forest as much as the first game? I mean, I liked the game, I just don't see myself playing it again. But that's just me. Maybe I'm the weird one.